For decades, Dick Van Dyke has brought joy and inspiration to millions with his timeless talent, resilience, and charm. From unforgettable performances to his incredible personal journey, he's defied expectations time and again. But now, something truly extraordinary has happened. An event so significant that it's leading the legendary entertainer to say goodbye in a way no one could have predicted. What could possibly prompt such a momentous farewell? Let's take a closer look. But before we dive into the big reveal, let's explore the journey that led to this pivotal moment. You see, Dick Van Dyke grew up with his younger brother Jerry in a modest but loving household. Their dad, once a baseball player and musician, shifted to working as a salesman after Dick was born, while their mom worked as a secretary. Life wasn't easy, especially during the Great Depression. But while money was tight, his family always managed to get by. They weren't rich, but they had enough, and his parents weren't overly strict about things like schoolwork. Humor ran in the family, and Dick often credited his funny parents for shaping his sense of humor. He grew up in Danville, Illinois, a peaceful, close-knit town that he described as the perfect little American community. It was the kind of place where neighbors were friendly, and trouble seemed far away. Dick had a good relationship with his parents, but one story from his childhood still stands out. On his 18th birthday, his mom casually told him he was already 18, but the date didn't add up. It turned out they had lied about his birthday. His mom explained that he was born early with complications, so they adjusted the date. Curious, Dick asked his grandmother, who revealed the truth. His parents had gotten pregnant before they were married. Back in the 1920s, this was a big scandal, and changing the date was their way of covering it up. His mom confirmed the story later, and while it was shocking for Dick to discover he was a love child, it didn't change how he felt about his parents or his upbringing. Shortly after learning his true age, Dick decided to join the Army Air Forces during World War II, even dropping out of high school to enlist. He was eager to serve, but when he learned he might become a tail gunner on a B-24 bomber, a dangerous position with high casualties, he decided it wasn't for him. Instead, he joined a group that entertained the troops, a role that felt more fitting given his love for performing. He'd already been active in choir and the drama club in high school, and those experiences prepared him for his new role. After the war, Dick returned home and threw himself into entertainment, never going back to finish high school. But that part of his story wasn't over. At 78 years old, he finally earned his diploma. Dick Van Dyke was born to make people smile. Growing up in Illinois, he was surrounded by talented performers like Donald O'Connor, who would go on to become a Hollywood star. But acting wasn't always the plan. Coming from a religious family, Dick once thought he might become a minister. That changed when he joined the drama club at school. He got hooked on performing, did a few school musicals, and even landed a part-time job at a local radio station. At 20, he started dating a girl from his hometown named Margie Willett. They wanted to get married but didn't have the money, until a radio producer for the show Bride and Groom offered to pay for their wedding and honeymoon if they got married on air. So in 1948, with 15 million listeners tuning in, Dick and Margie tied the knot on the radio. After the wedding, they made Los Angeles their home. Life threw them an early heartbreak. Margie suffered a miscarriage. But after healing, the couple hit the road with their comedy act, the Merry Mutes. From Reno to Miami to Atlanta, they performed across the country, bringing laughter wherever they went. In time, their family grew, welcoming 4 children: Christian, Barry, Stacy, and Carrie Beth. As Dick's career soared, Margie remained behind the scenes. She was a free-spirited, artistic soul, short hair, minimal makeup, and no desire for the spotlight, while Dick became a household name with The Dick Van Dyke Show. But what if we told you Johnny Carson could have been Rob Petrie instead of Dick Van Dyke? Hard to picture The Dick Van Dyke Show without its iconic star, right? Well, here's the twist. It wasn't always meant to be his role. It all started as Carl Reiner's brainchild. a sitcom about a young married couple where one of them worked on a TV show. In fact, Reiner initially planned to play Rob Petrie himself. CBS liked the concept and even approved the pilot, but they weren't sold on Reiner as the lead. While they loved the show's potential, they felt it needed a different face at the helm. There's speculation that Reiner's being Jewish may have played a part in the network's hesitation. Either way, the search began for a new Rob Petrie. Believe it or not, Johnny Carson, who would go on to become a late-night legend, was one of the final contenders. It eventually came down to Carson and Dick Van Dyke. Van Dyke landed the role, thanks to his Broadway success in Bye Bye Birdie. The chemistry between Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore was one of the show's highlights, making them the perfect TV couple. But here's a surprising twist. Dick initially didn't want Mary on the show. He thought she was too young, being 11 years his junior. However, Carl Reiner believed in Mary and cast her anyway, brushing off any concerns about the age gap. Turns out, Reiner was right. Audiences never noticed or cared. Dick was so nervous before filming the pilot that he lost 5 pounds in a week and broke out in fever blisters. If you watch closely, you can actually spot one on his lip, something Carl Reiner later pointed out himself. One of the most unforgettable moments during the show's run happened on November 22, 1963, the day President Kennedy was assassinated. The cast had been rehearsing a scene for Richie Petrie's birthday party, with kids running around the set, when the news broke. Everything stopped. In stunned silence, they gathered around a radio, taking in the unthinkable. Carl Reiner, understanding the weight of the moment, sent everyone home for the day. Despite its brilliance, the Dick Van Dyke Show didn't have an easy start. It was different, smart, witty, and even a little bold for its time. CBS nearly pulled the plug after the first season, but Procter & Gamble, one of its biggest advertisers, wasn't having it. They loved the show so much that they threatened to pull their ads if CBS canceled it. CBS backed down, moved the show to a better time slot, and just like that, the ratings skyrocketed. The show became a massive hit and could have lasted for years, but the cast and crew chose to end it after 5 seasons while they were still on top. By the time the final episode aired, Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore were household names, set for even bigger careers. 5 years later, CBS was eager to bring Dick Van Dyke back to television. The late 1960s had ushered in cultural shifts, the hippie movement, the rise of color TV, and they were willing to meet his every demand. Van Dyke got a guaranteed 3-year run for the new Dick Van Dyke Show, meaning CBS couldn't cancel it early without paying him a hefty sum. He also insisted on filming in carefree Arizona, where he lived, and CBS agreed. Although the show started strong, ratings eventually declined, and it ended after 3 seasons. Still, it marked Van Dyke's return to TV, and he remained a regular presence on television. Unlike stars like George Clooney or Bruce Willis, Dick Van Dyke never quite made the leap from TV icon to movie superstar. Hollywood tried, casting him in a variety of comedies and children's films during the 1960s and 1970s, but most didn't resonate with audiences. He appeared in Disney's Robin Crusoe USN, a comedy reminiscent of Buster Keaton's style, and even a film about an entire town trying to quit smoking. One standout moment in his career was his Emmy-winning performance in the drama The Morning After. Yet, for many viewers, he was forever Rob Petrie, the charming, funny, and unforgettable star of the Dick Van Dyke Show. But behind that charm was a man quietly torn between 2 lives. In 1975, Dick Van Dyke began a relationship with Michelle Triola, his agent's secretary, while still married to his wife, Margie Willett. Unlike Margie, who wasn't a fan of Hollywood life, Michelle was familiar with the showbiz world and seemed to connect with Dick in a way Margie didn't. In his memoir, Dick admitted that he would call his agent just to talk to Michelle. What started as casual lunches eventually turned into secret dinners in dimly lit restaurants where they wouldn't be recognized. Living a double life became incredibly stressful for Dick. He joked that keeping two relationships going at once was harder than working on his TV show. The stress even caused him to lose weight. Eventually, he and Marge agreed to live separate lives, though they stayed married for many years before divorcing later on. Afterward, he lived with Michelle for decades, but they never married. She never set a wedding date. The following year, Dick had a new variety show called Dyke and Company. The show had a strong start, even winning an Emmy over Saturday Night Live and The Muppet Show. Despite its success, it lasted only one season. Later, he joined The Carol Burnett Show, but it didn't go as expected. Carol Burnett had invited Dick to fill the gap left by Harvey Korman, but the writing didn't suit Dick's style. The writers were still crafting jokes for Harvey, which made things awkward. Dick eventually left the show, and Carol completely understood. She later wrote that while they had hoped to create a fantastic comedy duo, the chemistry just wasn't there. In 1988, Dick tried another sitcom with his son Barry called The Dyke Show. Unfortunately, it lasted only a few episodes. But 5 years later, he found lasting success with Diagnosis: Murder, playing a doctor who solved crimes. The show was a hit with older audiences and ran for 8 years. However, tragedy struck in 2008, when Dick's first wife, Margie, passed away from cancer. Though they had been divorced for years, Dick wrote that her death felt like losing a part of himself. The following year, Michelle Triola also passed away. Losing two significant partners so close together was deeply painful for Dick. Reflecting on Triola's illness, he recalled trying to stay optimistic for her, even pretending he didn't know how serious it was when she asked. He called it the hardest acting he'd ever done. Dick eventually found love again with Arlene Silver, a makeup artist he met at the 2006 SAG Awards. He was drawn to her beautiful eyes, while Arlene admitted she didn't initially recognize him as a performer, but as a person. They grew close after Dick's loss of Michelle, with Arlene often bringing him food after work. He fell for her kindness and support. Despite their 46-year age gap, the couple married on February 29, 2012. Dick described their relationship as one of the best decisions of his life. He said their differences balance each other perfectly. He's playful and immature, while she's wise beyond her years. On their first wedding anniversary, he said married life was unbelievable and credited Arlene with keeping him happy and youthful. The couple shares a playful dynamic. Arlene often dances around the kitchen while doing chores, and Dick claims it's impossible to feel down when there's always singing and dancing in their home. When they aren't traveling, they work on a TV show about their life together. Initially, it focused on Dick's career, but it evolved to highlight their love story as an example that love has no age limit. However, just when things seemed to calm down, life threw Dick another curveball. In August 2013, Dick Van Dyke's Twitter account shared a photo of his Jaguar completely destroyed with the caption, "Used Jag for sale, real cheap." It wasn't just a joke. While driving on a California highway, his car suddenly caught fire. Thankfully, he was able to escape, but he needed help from others to get out of the burning vehicle. TMZ was the first to report on the incident, revealing that the car was already in flames when he was rescued. True to his nature, Dick managed to turn the terrifying moment into humor with his tweet. Around that same time, Dick was dealing with another serious issue. For 7 years, he suffered from a mysterious neurological problem that caused a strange noise in his head, like a heartbeat, every time he lay down. Exhaustion took over, and no doctor could pinpoint the cause. Frustrated and desperate, he turned to Twitter for help, asking if anyone had an answer. A few weeks later, he discovered the culprit: his dental implants. Once the issue was resolved, the noise and discomfort disappeared. While Dick Van Dyke's sense of humor and charm have always been part of his public image, he faced personal battles that he kept private for many years. In the 1960s and 70s, when celebrity lives weren't as exposed as they are today, he was able to hide his struggle with alcohol. On Oprah's show in 2016, he revealed that he started drinking to cope with his shyness and feel more at ease in social situations. Over time, alcohol became a problem. He later admitted to The Guardian that he had been an alcoholic for 25 years, and it affected his family. On the podcast Bullseye with Jesse Thorne, he reflected on those years, saying he didn't even realize he had an issue, often drinking at home and overindulging. Smoking was another challenge he faced. At one point, he was smoking up to 3 packs of cigarettes a day. He described it as the worst addiction and tried unsuccessfully to quit for years. It wasn't until a doctor showed him an X-ray of his lungs and pointed out the early signs of emphysema that he finally stopped smoking for good. Dyke has been open about how these addictions impacted his mental health. He admitted to struggling with depression and even having thoughts of self-harm. He eventually sought help through rehab and Alcoholics Anonymous, which marked a turning point. He shared that one day drinking stopped making him feel good and instead made him feel sick. That was when he decided to quit, though the process wasn't easy. He's been sober and smoke-free for many years now, though the effects of his past habits have lingered. He's dealt with lung issues, including pneumonia and a collapsed lung. Despite these challenges, Dick Van Dyke has used his story to inspire others. By speaking openly about his struggles, he's helped people feel less alone in their battles with addiction. He's especially proud that a rehab center in New York is named after him, recognizing the impact his story has had on so many lives. Now you might think that after 60 years in the spotlight, Dick Van Dyke would be retired by now. But think again. He's about to turn 100, and he's still going strong, making appearances, acting, and even tap dancing. He looks incredible for his age. In an interview with Today, Dick said he doesn't think he'll ever retire because it's just too much fun. He told Larry King that getting older has been the best time of his life. He loves spending time with his wife and is thrilled he can still sing and dance. That energy and positivity might be why he's still so popular today. In 2021, Dick was honored at the Kennedy Center Honors for his incredible career. His Mary Poppins co-star Julie Andrews presented him with the award, saying he seems to have found the secret to happiness. He's proof that age doesn't have to slow you down. Recently, Dick appeared on Days of Our Lives, playing a man with amnesia who doesn't know who he is. It turns out he's the father of one of the main characters, and they reunite on the show. He even did a tap dance with another actor, Bill Hayes. The role earned him an Emmy nomination, and at nearly 100, he broke the record as the oldest person ever nominated in that category. Last year, Dick appeared on The Masked Singer dressed as a gnome. Though he was voted off first when everyone found out it was him, he received a standing ovation. Judge Nicole Scherzinger was so moved, she even started crying. Dick admitted he had never seen the show before being invited, but thought it looked like fun. He called it the weirdest thing he'd ever done and wowed the audience by singing a popular song from Mary Poppins. Dick believes staying in shape is the key to his health. He still works out 3 times a week, focusing on stretching, yoga, and using exercise machines to stay strong. He recently shared on a podcast how important staying active is and how much he enjoys it. As he approaches his 100th birthday this December, Dick Van Dyke is planning a big celebration. He said his 99th was low-key, so he's going all out for this milestone.